Hello and welcome to Coaching State. This is episode 17 in our series, The Subtle Art of Coaching. Today we're going to be exploring the power and peril of why questions in coaching. I'm really excited about this video. I hope you are too. Please like if you are enjoying this content. Leave a comment down below of questions you might have or videos you'd like to see. And of course, please subscribe if you've been enjoying this and want to keep up to date with all of our latest videos coming out. With that said, do you ever find yourself in a coaching session where almost every other answer your client gives starts with the word because, or there's a because somewhere in the sentence of their answers? You could be asking the wrong type of why question. Some schools, some coaching schools, I've had many students tell me that they went to another coaching school and they were told to not ask why questions at all. And I'm going to show you today why questions can be really powerful or they can be pretty perilous. Now, I do want to start off by saying, too, a lot of the sample questions, the examples I'm going to give, aren't necessarily going to start with why. We're not necessarily just saying that a why question only starts with why. Sometimes it might start with a how, a what, or a which. For example, how would this serve you? What would this do for you that's even more important? Or which path would be more fulfilling and rewarding to you? So, why questions are ones that draw out the meaning. They draw something deeper, something higher, something stronger, etc. Whereas misplaced why questions often take people, again, in that wrong direction. One of those wrong directions being because. So, why questions, in whatever form they come in, are really directing the thoughts of the client. And the biggest thing I can say here is how you ask the why questions is probably the number one. I'm going to give you some examples of upwards, what we call upwards versus downwards why questions. And what we're looking for is we do want upwards question. Why is that really important to you? Versus downward questions. Why did you do that? Just as two quick, easy examples. I'm going to give you some two sides of each coin, going to give you the different ends of the spectrum. And along the way, I'll be giving you the tips on how to ask more powerful why questions. So, in this thought of directing our clients' thoughts, why is that important? Often, a question similar to this is going to lead to expansion. So, does the question you're asking lead the client's thinking to things that are bigger, broader, and more inclusive? Or do they lead to contraction? Do they lead to the client shrinking? Does it lead to them going smaller or thinking in smaller pieces? These why questions, again, are to open up the thinking, to be more expansive and inclusive. And so we want that expansion. It's very similar. We talked recently about expansion versus contraction. We talked about it in our video about somatics and high performance states. We want our client moving to an expansive posture, not to a constricted or a contracted position. So, even just how you ask the questions, here's going to be number one, the most important tip. Upward why questions need to have this tonality. They need to have an upward tonality. Why is that important? Notice the curiosity in that. What would that do for you? We've got this rising inflection. What would that give you that's even more important? How would that serve other people? So notice that tonality rises versus a critical or a downward tone. Well, why did you do that? Why is that important? How is this going to affect other people? So the number one tip to asking better why questions is to make sure that anytime you're asking what we call an upwards question, we're talking about moving up the logical levels. We're talking about moving people to capabilities, values, choices, boundaries, their identity and their vision versus asking them to go down to their actions and environments, which actually reminds me, I mean, this is an easy place to say upwards why questions. how is this going to fulfill your purpose in life? Those are transformational questions. Whereas, how is this going to keep you from getting in trouble is going to be more of a transactional question. And so we're looking as coaches to always be transforming the individual versus just what I think of like sort of session to session, stringing them along on these transactional conversations where at the end of the day, as soon as you pull away and you're no longer having that conversation, the action stops happening. So pointing people to the transformational, their meaning, their purpose, their vision, their identity, that's the conversation that's going to carry and have a bigger, broader impact. So, you know, different questions. How is this aligned with who you are becoming? Transformational question. Why aren't you meeting the deadlines? Transactional conversation. Notice it's also any type of a negative question is always going to be a downward question. So, second big tip here for asking powerful upward why questions, the powerful upward why questions have to be positive. Now, downward questions can be positive or negative, but as soon as you ask it in a negative, that makes it a downward why question. So be careful of those negatives. Why didn't you? Why haven't you? Why shouldn't you? What, any type of past oriented question is going to be another one. Brings me to point number three, future oriented versus past oriented. Any past oriented question is transactional. Any question that is future oriented is more likely to be upwards. It's more likely to be that transformational. But just be careful. Again, we've got these traps that if you fall into these, then it automatically becomes transactional. It becomes downward. It becomes contraction. Past oriented versus future oriented. So tone, inclusion, transformational. And every time we talk about transformational, if you're asking transformational questions, those are upward why questions. Past versus future. Past is going to be transactional, take down into contraction. It's already what's known, it's negative. It's going to take people, it's going to cause them to contract into lower performance states. All right, so our next example, are your questions asking for creation or explanation? I love this one when it comes to parents. When we're thinking about parents using some coaching skills, I think there's some great examples here. The explanation, this is I hear it quite often from parents, especially when I'm out in public. Um, why did you do that? Why did you hit your sister? Why can't you just sit still? Those are all explanation questions, which also are contraction. They're negative, so they're going to lead downward versus creation. What could you do that would support us having a fun time today? That's a transformational question. That leads upwards. Um, what would that create for you? What would that give you? What would that make for you? Those are all questions about creation. It's what follows, what's coming, what's expanding, what's new, versus even one question I heard very recently in a restaurant. I think it was two business people having a conversation. Well, can you explain your reasoning for that? And it led to about a 20-minute of the other person giving all of these past oriented, negative, not in the client, not in his control items. He was blaming everybody, everything, and everywhere else that wasn't him versus what could he create? He was just giving excuses, trying to explain his position, explain out of his way. Now, there is a time for an explanation in coaching. If you don't understand, the client's using jargon or a topic where you're unfamiliar, could you explain that in a few words to me? Just I want to make sure that I'm clear, which isn't my favorite way to go about coaching because it starts to build this understanding is important type of conversation. But there is a little bit of that that has to happen. I do need to have a general gist, a general understanding. So, creation or explanation? Ask yourself those questions. So, really, what we're talking here, we'll go to our next how to ask better why questions. Are they questions oriented to purpose, meaning, legacy, calling? Are they becoming questions? Are they values questions? Are they questions that ask the client to tap into their heart? Are they questions that invite the client to speak their truth? Those are purpose questions. Or are we asking causation questions? What caused this? What led to this? How did we get here? What hasn't worked? What have you tried? Those are all cause, very often cause and effect style of questions. But I'm here because, and we started off talking about the because popping up in a lot of coaching sessions. If you hear that, I really encourage you again, check how you're asking these why oriented questions. How are you asking those upward questions? And be sure that we're focusing on purpose, not so much on the reasoning or the causes. Often, again, those causes are going to be external, they're going to be past, or they're not going to be in the client's control. So, all of those are going to drop us out of that transformational coaching. All right, now this one is similar. Another distinction I'm going to make here, meaning or excavating. What meaning is this creating for you? What long lasting effect is this going to have? That's a meaning question. Or are you excavating? Are you digging? Why aren't you? Why didn't you? What's wrong? What's wrong with this? Why isn't this done? Again, those are explanation. I often also use the word justification. Kids, our brain justifies, by the way. You ask somebody why they did that, they will come up with a justification. Whether or not the justification is a total fallacy or whether it's truth isn't even the point. It takes the client into contraction, into constriction. Their body position will start to move. You can watch it happen, especially if you coach on Zoom. Watch your client's body language. When you ask a why question, does the client sit back and expand? Or do they sit forward and constrict? Or do they slump in their chair? Do they open or do they start to close? Look for that energy. Does their voice sound optimistic or defeatist? These are all great indicators of, am I asking really powerful why questions or am I asking transactional why questions? Are your questions leading to inspiration or to defensiveness? Get very similar here. How would that be of benefit to others? What's the long term benefit this is going to give you? How will you continue to grow in this way? Those are all inspiration questions. What's the biggest impact you see this having? Think about it, but that's things that light people up. Is the light bulb going brighter or is the light bulb going dimmer? Defensive question. Why do you keep repeating that? Why do you keep, you know, that doesn't work. Why do you keep doing it? Why can't you be like your sister? Why can't you be like the, the little boy down the street? Why can't you be more like this? Why can't you this? Why don't you? Those again, all justification, defensiveness. All right, so another tip here on how, be sure that your questions, if you want to ask powerful why questions, be sure that they're open ended questions and not close ended questions. We have another video out there. Check our playlist on the subtle art of coaching of about closed ended, unintentional closed ended questions. That's going to be a great place for you to start to understand what those questions might look like that accidentally are closed ended. So, closed ended, what two of the big categories that are unintentional closed ended questions are past oriented and negative questions. So, any question of, well, why didn't you? Why can't you? Why couldn't you? What don't you want? What isn't that going to give you? Those questions are all automatically closed ended. More than likely, those are going to point down. Instead, go more open, go more expansive. All the questions I've been asking as examples are examples of those open ended questions. In our level one program, we talk about 9 different open ended frames that support coaches to ask powerful questions of different scope and really open up into inviting the client into these spaces. And some of our most powerful questions are the open-ended questions. Again, they correspond with these powerful why questions. Okay, so check your tone. Are you being curious or critical? Are your questions leading to purpose or causation? Are they future oriented or past oriented? This one we haven't talked about. I hadn't found a point to talk about it yet. Is this leading, are your questions leading the client to their higher self, transformational, or to their historical self? Is it future oriented or past oriented? These are all different ways to dissect this, but who are you going to become through creating this project? That is calling to the higher self. Um, what keeps you, the historical self? Well, what keeps you from moving ahead from here? What are you missing that you don't have that's causing this problem? Any type of question about the past, especially negative past, is really going to pop people down into that transactional, into that defensive, into that contraction. So, am I looking for the higher self, the better self, the improved self, the highest self, the person you were created to be? Or am I looking for traits? I think one of the biggest fallacies that I hear out there around the self, oh, he's so gifted. He was just born that way. I don't buy that for a moment. I don't buy, people were born this way or that way. Oh, he was a born speaker. He was a born dancer. Oh, he was just born with the talent of playing basketball. Skills, talents, abilities, and strategies are learned and can be learned. Now, don't get me wrong, there certainly are people who take to certain activities more easily than others. There is a slant, a slope. There's something in that direction that I believe can assist them in the learning. They might be able to go quicker, higher, faster, better. And there are people that certain things just aren't them. But that's not solid written in stone. It doesn't mean, I mean, really, we're talking about growth mindset versus fixed mindset here. And that is the myth that's been debunked over the years. So, growth mindset, Carol Dweck, if you're interested in that, check out Carol Dweck on growth mindset if you have some questions about that. So, again, let's just take a moment, sit back, think about your last coaching question, your last coaching session. Did you use powerful upward why questions? Really curious, really inspirational, really transformational, inviting the higher self to the conversation? Or were you asking downward why questions? Contraction, explanation. Um, were you looking, did you cause defensiveness? Did you cause the client to cross their arms and go back? If you find yourself asking some of those downward why questions, I encourage you to record your sessions, listen to those questions, and then ask yourself, was that upwards or downwards? And then write out for each downward, write out 3 or 4 upward questions that you could have asked instead. And in the next session, maybe have that just off to the side so you could look over for a little bit of inspiration. If you've got any questions about the content of this video, drop a comment below or reach out to me. My email is tony@coachingstate.com. We look forward to engaging with you in our future series of videos. We hope you have a great day and happy coaching.